Hello, so today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of July and all the books that I plan to read in the month of August. Here's a quick look at the books that I read in July. 3 of these are short stories, 4 are full novels. There were no new favorites on here, but a couple of really solid picks. And here's a quick look at the plans for August. We've got quite the range of vibes on that one, so it'll be an interesting month. Okay, what do you want to start with for July? Should we do the short stories first and the novels first? Let's start with the standalones, why not? So, A Sorceress Comes to Call. This is the most recent Kingfisher. Don't even know why I went into that with such confidence. Kingfisher that I have read. Not the most recent release, but the most recent that I've read. Kingfisher has been very hit or miss for me, and I have pretty much planned to probably not pick up any more books up to this point, just because I had a Wizard's First Rule, which was such a win, but then I've also had several that I've just been kind of like middle of the road on. But this was the Patreon pick of the month, and this was my second favorite Kingfisher. We're following a young girl named Cordelia, who is a sorceress's daughter. She, her mother, Evangeline, is a sorceress in a world where sorceresses are essentially assumed to not really be real. Once there were sorceresses that were powerful, but the legend is that the powerful sorceresses killed off the middling ones, and so you're left with people that just kind of have like common simple magic, and then you have the people with the really powerful magic, and they stay undercover, under wraps, so that people just kind of assume that real magic is gone and they can have a lot of power and influence stealthily. So Cordelia's mother is a powerful sorceress, but there are restrictions on her magic and how much she can control. Those restrictions are unfortunately not really applied toward Cordelia. So Cordelia is a very obedient child because she's been so isolated and abused, and if Cordelia steps out of line even mildly, even accidentally, then she's been made to be obedient, which means that Evangeline can take over Cordelia's faculties. She can basically turn her into a puppet. She can make her speak whatever she wants her to. She can have her walk, and she tends to neglect Cordelia's needs in that state as well. Like, she might wet herself or forget to eat or pass out because Evangeline isn't really thinking about meeting her needs. She's just thinking about, like, say these things I need you to say. So it's an incredibly abusive parental situation, and Evangeline is looking to woo a wealthy husband. She has a plan for her and for her daughter, and this is step 1, and we're watching them as they are infiltrating the manor of a group of really fantastic people, and Evangeline is trying to manipulate her way into household influence, and it's working, but it's not working on everyone. And so Cordelia, this kicked puppy of a child, I mean truly abused, confused child, is finding people that are willing to take up for her and be on her side, and it goes from there. We had this big discussion in my server about, is this book horror or like depressing, or is it cozy? And it was pretty much split down the middle, which is hilarious to me because, you know, we have the abuse, we have the manipulation, we have some straight up horror scenes happening, but there's also this feeling of rallying together against the abuser that does, I'll admit it, Sid, distinctly give it an underlying cozy feel. I'm still team not cozy, which I will say, if you are a fan of Kingfisher, then you're probably not surprised that it has that balance of horror and serious and also strangely cozy. I still don't really feel compelled to read a lot more Kingfisher though. Next, we'll talk about Dungeons & Dragon Dating. This is the other Patreon pick. This is the Haters Book Club Patreon pick. This was an interesting one because this one was thrown out there on a whim, just because it's cozy, and I don't read a lot of cozy books, and it's a romance, and I don't read a lot of romance. But also the expectation was, I mean, maybe it'll work out, you know, like maybe people will like it. And again, this one was split down the middle. About half the people really enjoyed themselves, and about half of us felt very little about this book. I was the one that rated it the lowest though, so my score is quite controversial. Most people on my team were in the 3 range instead of the 2.5. This is a D&D style quick fantasy romance. It's like 250 pages, I think, and it's based off of D&D like characters and campaigns. We follow, I want to say, Kira and Lyra. Kira is a battle mage, Lyra is a hearth witch, and they, which not that a hearth witch is a D&D, but anyway, it makes sense in the book. They don't know each other, but there is a dragon that propositions Lyra to let me rent out a broom cupboard in your inn, and I will set up this dating service, and then it'll help you pay rent. And she says, yes, but I need to try it out. I need to make sure that this is ethical. And so she is the first target of this dating thing, as is Kira. And they are thrown into this world, into this like pocket dimension. You know, the cupboard is the beginning spot, but then they get thrown into this horror forest, this forest full of monsters and things that are trying to kill them. And these 2 people who have a lot of relationship trauma from past relationships and who have really decided that they're not here for love, they're not here on this earth for love, they're not going to try it anymore, end up bonding over life endangerment and then over the conversations that they have as well. I thought the concept of this book was very fun, but I think the execution was very mediocre. Do you know how sometimes when you read a book that has like D&D in it, in the concept, it kind of just feels like we rolled the dice and now this thing is happening? That's how this book felt a lot, with the monsters and with the things that that would happen, you know, like, oh no, we're stuck in this magical chest pocket dimension and we can't get out, and there's monsters on the other side. What do we do? Roll the dice. Okay, the melted gold and poop is now spraying out and hitting the monsters, and now you're free. Like, it's not good plotting. And same with the characters. They're how we get them from I'm not going to date and I'm not going to try dating to now you're in this dating scenario is very much like, it's happening because it's happening, okay? I don't have to try very hard. We were actually making quite a few jokes about the beginning because it was so ridiculous, the way especially Kira ended up where she is. It's a quick, cute romance. If that's your thing, give it a go. If it's not your thing, it's not going to be one that changes your mind. My nonfiction this month was Blitzed. This is a book looking at the use of drugs in the Third Reich, from the absolute disdain that drugs were looked in on and the strong restrictions to the very quick common use everywhere, and then use for the soldiers because it's easier to throw bodies at something when those bodies won't sleep, lose a lot of their trepidation, I guess you could say, and are like nonstop Energizer bunnies. It really gives a different perspective on certain times in history where the soldiers just pushed forward for days and days and days. And it's like, okay, well, now I understand how they could have done that. It also puts quite a bit of emphasis on Hitler himself, who put all of his trust in his doctor, his personal doctor, Morel, who at first he went to him for simple things and Morel treated him, but very quickly Hitler became more and more dependent on the drugs themselves, and therefore more and more dependent on Morel and the special cocktail of drugs that he was constantly giving him in order to keep his energies high and to keep him going, and to keep his body, as his body was not responding well, as his body was breaking down and the drug dependency was amping up, the more that he became completely dependent on it, to the point that Morel was even saying, we need to take a break. Your veins are not good for the injections anymore, and your isolation, the way that you like seclude yourself and are becoming more self-deluded, none of this is good. And Hitler's like, no, give me more. So it's a fascinating cultural look, but it also makes a very focused point of saying the Third Reich didn't happen because of drugs. The drugs simply fueled the extremism that was already being pushed. The book does a good job of bringing an interesting perspective on this piece of history while also still holding the parties very much accountable. Okay, quickly, let's go through some sequels. So first we have The Rule of Two, which already has a spoiler-filled review. This is the sequel to Path of Destruction, Book 2 in the Darth Bane trilogy. I honestly can't decide if I like Book 1 or Book 2 more because they're very different books, but I've already started Book 3 and I'm really enjoying it. I also read One of Our Thursdays is Missing, which I can't remember what sequence this is in the series, maybe 5, maybe 6. This is one of the weaker ones for me. I think 3 and this one are my weakest. This one felt very much like a side tangent. There were certain things that happened in the last book that myself and a couple of other people on my Patreon were like, okay, we got to get back to it. We got to see what's happening. And we didn't. We kind of just did something else. And it was a fun side tangent. It was still filled with Jasper Fford's humor and quick wit and excellent characters, though largely new characters. A lot of our established characters that I know and love and look forward to seeing were not here. But it also felt like a side quest, so it was weaker for me in that way. I think this would have made a really good 0.5. If Jasper Fford wanted to write a novella in between his novels, it would have been better suited that way. My short stories, I read The Judgment by Kafka. After reading The Metamorphosis, I wanted to read more of his work, and this was the next one that I chose. I think that this is one that strongly reflects Kafka's relationship with his dad and some of the internal processing, or rather external processing, that he did through his work, which I think a few of his works do that, but this one very overtly does. And it's dark. White Nights is my next Dostoevsky that I've read. This feels like a letter from an unknown woman, this time by the man. We have a character that lives in his mind. Oh my goodness. He wants community and relationships, but he self-isolates. He is his own barrier to that, and instead he lives in his imaginings and feels that he should be a part of the world, but the world doesn't allow him to be part of it, or that's what he thinks. That's how it feels to him, but it is very much self-imposed. And then he meets a woman who is kind of a dreamer too. She too kind of just goes away with her own thoughts and ideals. Hers are a little bit more like it's subjected to her because she certainly doesn't have a healthy relationship with her grandmother. But it's two people that don't know how to engage with the world, and then they find each other, and then they just like talk at each other for a really long time. I think it's largely about being on the outside, despite being on the inside, but still feeling like being on the outside. And sometimes that's self-imposed. Then we have Luck Lamora and the Bottled Serpent. I really shouldn't have ended here. I feel very mid about this. This takes place when Locke is 13 and he's sent away by Father Chains to work at a bar, and just don't do so much. Just like chill for a second, my guy. He is given a task of collecting so much money, and he does befriend someone, and through working with that someone, ends up losing some of that money. It's sort of a short story of nothing, conceptually and execution wise, but at the same time it ends in a place of heart, and it's kind of just like, let's just hang out with Locke again. Let's just get back in this world, get back with Scott Lynch's prose, and just chill. I did like the conversation at the end. I think it's kind of nice to have a fantasy story just say, listen, it's not easy to do the right thing. There are consequences when you choose to do the right thing. Being a hero doesn't always feel heroic, but in very small stakes ways as well. And you still get a little bit of like the heart of like the character dynamics that I love so much of these books. I kind of feel the same way about this as I do about One of Our Thursdays is Missing, which is, it's not the strongest installation, but I'm hanging out with one of my favorite authors, so I'm not having a bad time. Okay, quickly let's go through the August TBR. The Brothers of Karamazov. I've already started it. I already like it quite a bit. Slaughterhouse-Five, this is the Patreon pick of the month. It was pitched to me, I think, as if you want to have a conversation about war in a satirical, critical way, This'll be good. Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. This was recommended to me by the stupendous, excellent Jimmy Nuts. I believe this is a memoir, and I know Frederick Douglass was a big abolitionist in the US as a former slave, so I think his memoir is going to be very interesting to read. The Wizard Who Kept Himself Suspicious is another Scott Lynch release. I know I was kind of mid on the Locke Lamora one, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep reading Lynch always and forever. This is in a collection of short stories that have actually already been released, so I'll be reading this very soon. I'm not sure if I'm reading the full collection or if I'm just reading Scott Lynch's story, but I'm at least definitely reading Scott Lynch's story. I have 2 Star Wars books this month. We have Dynasty of Evil, book 3 in the Darth Bane series. Already started it. And the, what's it called? The Rise of Skywalker. Simon chose this for me. I'm pretty sure this is the last book of the sequel series, so to watch the first 2 movies so that I can read this book. Finally, we have Trade of Blood. This is the 3rd book in Shadow of Leviathan series. A Drop of Corruption is the first book, which I very much enjoyed. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. Book 2, I gave 4 stars. I believe this is the conclusion of the trilogy. I don't really feel in the mood for this series right now, so I want to read it because I want to discuss it with everybody while they're reading it, because this is a series that I've enjoyed, and I hope I get into the swing of it when it's released at the end of this month and I am reading it. Anyway, those are all the books that I read in the month of July and plan on reading in the month of August. Chat with me about them in the comments if you've read any of these, if you plan on picking any of them up so that we can discuss them when I talk about them on the channel. I'll see you again soon. Bye.